The feeling of loneliness, isolation, separation. What makes a criminal or a sociopath or even a narcissist do what they do? Use violence, intimidation and manipulation to get their needs met. How is it possible that they are able to do that? To have that type of behavior? That is because they live in such isolation they cannot feel the feelings of someone else, right? They lack empathy. Or they lack love for themselves, because if you have love for yourself, then you can communicate or make that connection to someone else. Now, of course, you are not in such a situation, but still you could maybe feel a little bit of loneliness in your life and you find it difficult to make authentic connections to others. And in this video I dive deep into this subject, because yesterday I was at a lecture where I learned a lot from this around this topic, and at the end of this video I will share how you can dive deeper in this topic, because this is something that is highly and deeply rooted within our society, and it might even look like it's only getting worse and worse and worse. So we really need to have a deeper look at this situation, because this is really where all lack and separation is coming from. And what it is that is currently going on in our world, in our economy, political system. We need to have more wars on this, wars on that, you name it, all the violence that's going on in our world. So the feeling of loneliness, isolation and separation, where is this coming from and how can we solve that? In this video I will share a little bit more of my own personal experience, because chances are you can relate more to that than these extreme examples of extreme violence of or even these examples of sociopath or the narcissist and that sort of things. But here's the thing: when I was around 10 years old, my parents went through a divorce, which is quite normal in our society. And for some reason I decided to stay with my father, which is not a very common thing, and that's why we went through many cases in courthouse in order so that my father could win the custody over me. Now my father was so much full with rage and anger, because he also had all his childhood issues and whatnot, the things that were being passed on to him, and he made me believe that my mother didn't want me and she had to leave me, and these kind of things. And first, I was an emotional overwhelm. I was crying. I didn't understand, and until I was probably around 12 years old, and then what suddenly started to happen, I shut down my feelings, I shut down my emotions. So I had this aspect of myself, and I put it away, and I took another aspect of myself that was able to cope with this more. Okay, so what I started to do is I became more independent. I became more independent of my caretakers, people around me, because they can't be trusted. Okay, they can let you down, they can disappoint you. It's a feeling of betray. So we create like a survival mechanism, because we are still in a development stage where we are emotional dependent. Even as adults we are emotional dependent on others. We say to ourselves, oh, that's not true, because we can earn our own money, we can buy our own food, and that's what makes us independent. But emotionally and socially we are independent on each other, like we need air, water, food and that sort of things. It's one of the basic things in our life that we need. And because our basic needs are not being met, what we do is we start to cope with it. We create, let's say, a survival mechanism, and what we do is that part of us, that vulnerable part, that sensitive part, we see, okay, so a part of me is not receiving that, So I'm not worthy of receiving, I'm not worthy of experiencing these. So what we do is, we started to push it away, we started to suppress it, and then we create another image of ourselves that is strong, that is masculine, that is independent, that can take care of itself, that says, you know what, I don't need anyone, okay? I can be on my own, I can take care for myself. And that's exactly what I started to do when I was a teenager. We also had a lot of financial issues, so I picked up my first job when I was 14. I started to work 60 hours a week in a restaurant when I was about 16, and I started my first part-time side hustle business when I was about 20 years old, when I was still in college. And when I came out of college, I had such high expectations from the corporate world and that sort of things. And when I had my first job in the corporate world, that was really the moment where I started to experience deep sense of loneliness and isolations and separation, and that became even worse. I started to struggle a lot with deep feelings of depressions, and what I started to tell myself is, I need to go back to this independence. I need to have more this freedom, and that's really where I started another entrepreneurial path. And of course that path also felt a little bit like a dead end to me, because yes, eventually I started to build up an internet business and that sort of things, and that really comes to the big point of where I am today, because I was like half my 20s. I'm currently 32, and I'm still not all there, because during that time I was kind of hiding behind my computer screen, telling a lot of people a lot of bullshit things, and I was still not in part with that emotional state of me, right? This vulnerable part, this sense of authenticity. And I was selling people all sorts of bullshits on how to be more independent, something that we are currently bombarded with on the internet. I mean, you only have to open up your Facebook, your social media, and you get bombarded with these messages on how to be financially successful and whatnot and become more independent. And that internet business crumbled down, because eventually I started to feel like, now I make all this money, I still don't have connections. I have hundreds of people on my email list, I have hundreds of people in my affiliate programs and whatnot. I still have no connections. So I was living this facade, of success and what we're trying to pursue in this society, what we think that makes us happy and whatnot. I started to sabotage myself, and I started to feel ashamed. This is a big one. I started to feel ashamed for my behavior, because my behavior was like, okay, to get your needs met, you need to manipulate others in trying to get it. And when we start to manipulate is, when we can't get our needs met, when we knock someone on the front door. So what we do is we find psychological ways to knock someone on the back door, and then through that way get your needs met. That was what I was doing, and became more conscious of it. And I felt like this is not authentic. It's not authentic because I'm not really coming from the heart. I'm not really showing my sense of authenticity and vulnerability, and I'm not really in touch with my feelings, and which is so important as a high sensitive. So I really started to sabotage myself, and I created very, very limited belief on, entrepreneurship, business, and that's why I created more lack beliefs and more shame and guilt within my experience, and I started to isolate myself even more. Okay, I started to take on very simple jobs that were far away from satisfying or fulfilling, and again I was just like surviving. I was just getting by, and I was telling myself it's okay, which it was not. And you can say, yeah, okay, money doesn't make you happy, money is of course just like a little outcome of something. It is more, of course, you know, the connections that we make on a daily basis, and I started to isolate myself even more. And here in London, I feel it's only getting worse and worse and worse, because London is of course such a metropole, and trust me, I've tried many things, you know, to reach out and to network and to socialize. And what I feel is, you know, you can find social groups everywhere. You can make connections everywhere, and you can have a nice chat with someone on a nice social group. First of all, you need to pay some sort of a fee, 20 quid or whatever, to get in touch with someone, and then you have a nice chat, and then you realize these people are from all over the city, so it's like very difficult to stay in touch with anyone. And then you're like, hey, you know what, I'm stuck in the rat race, he or she is stuck in the rat race, we already spent like 12 hours a day, includes work and commute. When we come home, we want to have a moment to breathe. And then you don't really want to spend more time in commuting and reaching someone else. So infrastructure in our society, especially in the cities, make things even worse, where we feel even more isolated and separated. So to get a little bit more to the point of why we feel lonely, isolated and separated, we need to go again back to our early stage of life, our childhood, and realize that some of our behaviors were not recognized, disapproved, and that created, like, let's say, like a split in our consciousness, or fragmentation, soul fragmentation. And we have an aspect, you know, because within our mind we have like multiple personalities, like we call them sides, you know, different kind of side. Oh, that's the side of the good side, the bad side, the ugly side, the beautiful side. And we take one side, and what we do is, you know, we say, okay, so this was not recognized, this was not approved. So what I do is I started to suppress it, okay? And then we create separation within ourselves, within our being. And then we move to another aspect of ourselves. So for example, like in my early stages, I closed down from getting in touch with my feelings, and then I started to be very independent, and, you know, I call it masculine. It was not very masculine, it was more like immature boy psychology behavior, and not mature masculine, divine masculine behavior, because I wanted to be more independent, right, more stronger, and only rely on yourself, which is a very common behavior from a lot of people in our society. And I started to suppress that aspect, that feeling aspect of myself. Then I went through various burnouts, depressions, anxieties, stress, and then I realized, like, wait a minute, this independent image of myself is not longer serving me. And maybe I also started to suppress, let's say, my mature, divine masculine part of me, that also felt like I felt a bit ashamed of, because it was not always benefiting. It was never really creating mutual interest, all right, both for myself and for someone else, which is of course more divine, mature. Instead, I was looking for ways to manipulate and knock on someone's back door in order to try to get my needs met, which felt never authentic. And because it did not feel authentic, I started to isolate myself more from others, because I kind of felt ashamed of myself and my behaviors. So now, you know, I spend a lot of time in nature, looking for peace and all these kind of things, meditation, spirituality, mindfulness, which is getting more in touch with my, you know, intuition, feeling states, feminine part, which I have been suppressing for many years. But I also feel like these other aspects also still feel is feeling suppressed in some way, and that creates again like separation within ourselves, right? And that creates loneliness, and loneliness is coming from feeling ashamed of these various aspects of ourselves. So what can we do about it is, first of all, become very aware that we have these multiple aspects, you know, these different sides of our personality. Bring awareness to them, and then accept them, embrace them, self-acceptance. Move closer to them again. And while we are moving closer, we start to embody ourselves more, and we start to trust ourselves more, and that's how we create a better relationship with ourselves. That's really how we can start to love ourselves more, because we create consistency in our states of fulfillment, satisfaction, completion, feeling proud and happy about ourselves. And I think that's really what matters, is to create this sense of wholeness and connection within ourselves, so we can, let's say, build authentic connections where we can meet the needs of each other and not trying to find ways to manipulate or to intimidate with lack of empathy in order to get your own needs met that were never met before. So I hope this makes a little bit of sense, and from who I learned this from, and I think she is the master on this topic, and right now this opens up a little bit of a new door for me as well, and I want to dive deeper in studying her work. And yesterday I was in central London on a lecture from her, and this is the work from Teal Swan, and she recently wrote a book which is about the anatomy of loneliness, and she goes very, very deep on this. So I'm going to read her book. I still need to order it from Amazon, but if you would like to dive further into this topic, you will find a link somewhere in the description of this video, and then you can get this book yourself as well. But again, I want to start up a little bit of a discussion here on YouTube, and that is, of course, what kind of aspects of yourself do you feel ashamed about? I know this is quite, a sensitive topic, but if you feel like, okay, you want to share this, then feel free to, to leave a comment below. And because that's really like the number one step, is when you really can bring that to the surface, and you also have the courage to share that, then the thing of shame will actually already start to disappear. And because during this process you already create more awareness, and you start to already embrace it more, accept it more, and that's how you can move closer to who you really are. So hope this was helpful. I'm sorry this is not a very artistic video like my last video. If you have not seen that before, then also make sure to check that out, because I really wanted to get this information out there, because this also plays, this currently also plays a very big theme in my life as well, as I'm moving through these various aspects and sides of myself. And my mission is to create wholeness within my own being, and solve separation, the illusion of separation, or solve fragmentation, whatever you would like to call it, and move further towards unity consciousness. And as we go through this human experience, we go through these various aspects where one day we can feel euphoric and united with unity, and other day we feel completely isolated and separated from our own being, and it feels like we feel like not doing anything. We feel apathetic perhaps, or we feel very, very lonely, like we are alone, and we wonder, what is my place here in this world? Where do I belong? So various topics we are moving through, as sometimes as a roller coaster, and that's why I want to put out this you know, very important insights and share these insights with you. So if you got any questions, if you have anything to share, make sure to leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more of these type of videos. Paul here, take care for now. Bye bye.